Okay, so for those of you who are in the room, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So Kim Dunn just put out some instructions to access the how to see the presentation. So I'm doing a Prezi today called Having the Winning Hand, Scholarship Opportunities at CPHS. And you'll need to click on the presentation room tab at the top of the screen. And then you should be able to hear me and see my screen. And without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. So for the purposes of me trying to give my presentation and answer questions, I won't be looking at the chat room while I'm talking. However, when I'm done with the presentation, I'll go back and look at the chat room and make sure to answer any questions verbally. But in the meantime, I am going to go ahead and get started. So, first thing, obviously, is talking about scholarship opportunities. So as hopefully all of you know through some of the chats today and through emails and things like that, our Common Scholarship came out today. The scholarship opened today, March 1st. It's actually available right now if you clicked on it. And this is just a little screenshot of our scholarship website. So as you can see, it's under our CPHS page. It's not under the Campbell general page. So to access it, you do have a link that you have gotten to your email. And you also will be able to just go to the CPHS webpage, and there's a nice little convenient tab right up here where my mouse is going that says scholarships. And this is how you'll get to our page that talks about how to apply. It gives you the link to the application. It also gives you information over here more on your specific program scholarships. So each program has different sets of scholarships that have different requirements. And all of that explanation is put there on the website for you to peruse and kind of see what options you have. So obviously, first thing is to review the application. Look over this webpage. Look at, there is a nice little link for additional guidelines that talk about how our scholarship committee will evaluate your application. We typically get over 500 applications every year, and we just anticipate getting more and more as we add more students and more programs. So that's a lot of applications. So we try to evaluate them in the most kind of equal way possible. And so we use rubrics, and these guidelines talk a lot about what we look for in our rubrics for applying, which is basically well-rounded student. We want to see your involvement. We want to see your need. We want to see what makes you stand out as deserving of a scholarship. So beyond the getting to the application, looking at the scholarships that we have, prepare your materials. So these three materials are the big things to look at. So first of all, cover letter. A cover letter, hopefully you all know what a cover letter is. You may or may not have had to write it for a job before or something along those lines, but a cover letter is going to be one page. Please do not make it more than one page. I can tell you as someone that reviews countless applications every year, after reading 60 of them, I can't stand it when someone has written more than a page. So keep it to a page, even though you'll probably have a lot of material that you do want to talk about. Keep it to a page, short and simple. Hit those important points that we're not going to see on your CV. So your CV, your resume, and your cover letter are judged separately. They're looked at separately. And your cover letter is looked not only at things like grammar and formatting, but we also look a lot about what makes you stand out. What are maybe some of your biggest accomplishments? What are some of the leadership positions you've been in? What are some of your financial needs that are maybe different from everyone else around you? If you're a first generation college student, this would be a great place to mention that. If you're from an underrepresented minority, if you are in some kind of situation that makes you unique to having more financial need or kind of deserving of a scholarship, this is where you're going to put that. So really take some time, think about what makes you unique, and talk to other people. Ask them about, okay, what makes me stand out? Because sometimes we get so in our heads and we think about these things and we forget about all the things that make us unique until, you talk with your mentor or your friend. So make sure to connect with other people and ask them so that you're getting something that is unique to you. Then, of course, your resume or your CV. Either one will do. There is no rhyme or reason for having one over the other, but the basic format is the same for both of them, and that's what we look at. We want to see on this involvement. We want to see leadership positions. We want to see research that you've done, certifications, work experience. We want to see all of that. We want to see some full resumes, some full CVs. We want to see things that are really going to be full of things that you have been involved in, or show us that you're kind of actively preparing to get into your program, and that you've taken steps to be involved, because we think that that's the best way for you to get scholarships. That's what most outside scholarships look for, beyond GPA. That's when you're looking at jobs and things like that. They want to see not only that you just went to school and you did well, but they want to see what did you do while you were in school. And please remember to add your program. You're accepted to your program, which means it should have gone on your resume or your CV first thing. That day you got your acceptance letter and you paid your deposit and you're coming here, it should be on your resume or CV. And a lot of students say, well, I haven't actually come here yet, but you have every intention of coming here. So if for some reason, something happens, you can always change that. But since and you planned and you paid already your deposit, so you're coming here, put that on your CV. It also helps the reviewers kind of know where you're coming from based on your experience and what program you're in terms of reviewing. And then essays is the final thing. So essays are something new this year that is part of the Common Application. We used to have 3 or 4 separate applications that required not only a separate application, but an essay. And this year, all of that is found in the Common Application, which is why it's really important to actually look at the application before you complete it. There is, I think there's about 4 or 5, and different programs are eligible for these scholarships. And these 4 or 5 scholarships, you'll find them at the very end of the application, and it will talk about what the scholarship is, who is eligible for it, depending on what program you're in. And then it will also talk about what you need to write about. So the biggest thing on an essay, answer the question, answer the prompt. There are so many people that I've seen who just copy and paste their personal statement into an essay for a scholarship, and we can tell when we review it. So please don't do that, because that's just going to kind of cause us to not really even take your essay seriously. So answer the question. It should be about whatever the prompt is. If you fill out more than one essay, if you're eligible for more than one scholarship, you should be writing a different essay for each scholarship, because all of these scholarships essentially are for different things. So make sure to be completing those essays. And then once you've completed all of those things, and perhaps maybe you don't want to apply for any of the scholarships that require essays, that's perfectly fine. The majority of our scholarships do not require essays. It just requires your cover letter and your resume or your CV. Also a reminder that your cover letter and your CV are to be attached in the same file. This is different from last year. We had them attached in separate files, but this year you'll attach both of them in the same file. And please submit them in a Word format, since we blind all of our applications. That way, if you submit it in a PDF, sometimes it gets really hard to try and blind your application. Whereas if you submit it in a Word format, we can take your name off, then it works just fine. Okay, so finally, once you've done all of your materials, your supplemental materials, it's time to review the application and complete it. And so I really must stress the importance of proofreading. I see a lot of these applications every year, and sometimes I look at them and I think, this person did not even take a second look at this. And I don't like to do that. I would rather that you ask 3 or 4 people to look at it. Ask your roommate, ask your mentor, ask your instructor, go to your advisor, go to your career center at the university you're at, or if you're an alumni, you can go to, most alumni services have career services or will direct you back to career services at your university. But go to people who've looked at your resume, looked at cover letters, reviewed your personal statements for your entrance into the program that you've applied to. Look at those people to help proofread these things, because a lot of times when you've spent so much time trying to create that perfect 1-page cover letter, you miss all of the things like commas, or that your font is 2 different sizes, or that some of your font is in gray and some of your font is actually in black. So things like that, most people notice when they're reviewing. So I would really just don't give us an excuse to give you a lower score because you didn't proofread or you didn't add a comma or have somebody look at those things. So just take a look at it yourself, have somebody else take a look at it. Most of the time you should be set to go. So then this is a little snapshot of what the application actually looks like this year. So as you can see, there's a lot of information at the top. But the biggest thing to remember is to please complete your FAFSA. We have a lot of scholarships that are given to students based on your financial need. And this is how we determine that from what you've completed in your FAFSA. So if you don't complete this, we automatically assume that you don't have any financial need. So don't make us assume that, because I think almost everyone has financial need. So please complete those things so that we can really make sure that we have all of that information to really hopefully give you the best scholarships that you can be eligible for, make you eligible for as many scholarships as possible. Also, one note, we do have one separate scholarship. However, as incoming students, you won't be eligible to apply for it because you need to be part of the fraternity to apply for it. So you can just ignore that. And then there is a reminder in bold that the deadline for this application is Sunday, May 29th. So again, that's plenty of time. May is far away, although it is so close. So please don't let that time pass you by. Please get this in. There is not a preference of getting your applications in sooner rather than later. We do not look at them in any sort of fashion or preference. Although we do have rolling reviews, so probably starting in April, applications will start to be reviewed. So pretty much once you've submitted your application, you will not really be able to resubmit it. So again, take a look, make sure everything's correct on that. All right. So additional scholarships. So I talked a lot exhaustively about our common scholarship applications. So I'm seeing some of the names of people who have perhaps been to our accepted student days or come to our virtual fairs before. So I'm sure this is kind of old news for you. So this is some new news for you. So additional scholarships. Of course, we offer scholarships, but go outside. There's so many things offered outside of CPHS, even on the university level and on the national level. So FAFSA, of course, goes without saying. It's the free, oh goodness, I'm going to get this wrong, so I shouldn't even try it, but free application for federal student aid. I believe that's what it's called. And this is how you get determined what you're going to get for loan money from the government, and which has the best interest rates for student loans and things like that. So that's something that really should be filled out, honestly, anytime now. You will need your tax information to fill that out, so make sure that that's all been completed before you've completed your FAFSA. The FELS loan is a forgivable education loan for service. This is available for North Carolina residents. I will say that this application has been open since January, and it is a first come, first serve on a first come, first serve basis. So by now, I don't know how much money they have left to award. You can always give it a try. The application is open until April 2nd, I believe. So go ahead, apply for it. But this one, the sooner the better. So perhaps if you apply and they say you're eligible, but we don't have funds, that's something to mark on your calendar to make sure that you do in January next year. National organizations. So I'm sorry that I didn't include the master's programs on here. I don't have all of that information yet, but I wanted to put what I had on here for some of our other programs. So PharmD. Look at NCAP, look at AACP, look at APHA, Pharmacist Mutual Insurance offers scholarships, PA, look at AAPA, CAPA, PALH, and the PA Foundation. They all offer different types of scholarships. I don't think we have any DPT students in here, but APTA is a good source for DPT students. And we're actually working right now on developing a list of these for programs. So keep an eye out on our website. That is coming soon. It is not there yet because we're still working, like I said, on developing that. So especially for those of you who are in master's programs, public health, the best way is easy. Google it. Google Public Health National Organization scholarships and look at what comes up. That's honestly probably one of the best ways if you don't see your program on here to look that up and go from there. Also, if you're from out of state, look at some of the programs from some of maybe the schools in your state and what they might have on their websites for scholarships. A lot of times they'll advertise more in-state things, like we advertise the FELS loan, but if you're not a North Carolina resident, you can't apply for that. So think about what's offered in your state. I know Ohio offers a lot of health scholarships depending on the region that you're from, and New York does as well, especially if you're from the Buffalo area. So look into those opportunities as well. Military scholarships, of course, are also a really good way to go about funding your education. If that's of interest to you, we typically will have a recruiter come to either career day or sometime during the beginning of school year to talk about that. We had an Air Force recruiter come last year and talk about that scholarship program. We'll send emails out about that periodically, so keep an eye out for those emails. And then additional Campbell scholarships. So on the Campbell University Financial Aid page, which you can see there's a link right here, there is also outside scholarships published. Some of them are more directed toward the North Carolina area. Some of them are more directed toward minorities. So if you're from a certain background or from a rural area or things like that, these are just more scholarships to look at. Some of them are mainly for undergrads. Some of them are for any student. So you'll want to keep an eye on the eligibility requirements. But again, that's just another resource to look at scholarships through. Okay, so financial aid. Now that we've talked about scholarships, I wanted to talk a little bit about financial aid and tuition and billing because it seems like we always have a few questions about this. And I've already seen some things on the questions about when am I going to get my financial aid letters. So financial aid letters will be distributed sometime in March or April, starting in March or April, and continuing on into the summer via mail with instructions for how to accept your award. So it'll tell you what forms you need to complete and how to go about doing that. So please read your letter. A lot of people overlook this and then have a lot of questions, but they put everything for you in the letter. So just make sure to read it. And you have to have completed your FAFSA for you to get the award letter. If you haven't completed your FAFSA, you won't get the award letter. Therefore, you won't know what your eligibility for loans are. And one other comment, I don't know if we have any international students out there, but the FAFSA is only available to students that are U.S. citizens. So just to keep that in mind. If you're not, you would obviously start the process and you probably wouldn't actually be able to apply, but just to keep that in mind as well. And then there is contact information here. You want to talk to not just the financial aid office for loans, but you want to talk specifically to the financial aid loan team. And this is the number and the contact number. There's a toll-free number, a regular phone number, an email, and a fax number on there. So again, make sure you want to talk to the loan team because they will specifically help you with that FAFSA and your loan letters. The financial aid office can offer other kinds of questions in terms of if you've gotten an outside scholarship, how that will be processed into the university or other things like that. But the loan team helps with all of those federal loans. All right, now tuition and billing. So bills are typically sent in July, and I know it's really early to talk about this, but I try to get ahead of that so that people kind of know when they're coming. And then scholarships are awarded in late July, early August. It just kind of depends on when we get that information that we need from the financial aid office to award those scholarships. And those are all going to be awarded via email. Bills are actually mailed, but you can also access them online on your CashNet, which is accessible through web access. And again, there is some information here about where to go for tuition, billing, payments, payment plan. This is all the business office. This isn't financial aid, it's the business office. So anything that has to do with the actual bill you get about how much money you owe or what your tuition costs or how you're going to pay it, that's the business office. Again, for loans, anything regarding what you have gotten from FAFSA, what you're getting from your government loan and how to accept that. If you have any questions on, can I take less out now and more out later, which I would advise, make sure that that goes to the loans office. And then this is also information about where to find that on campus if you prefer to talk to somebody in person. And then I am, of course, the contact for scholarships. The best way to get a hold of me is to email me. You can certainly also call me, but I will just warn you that email is probably better than calling. So those are that is all of the information that I had today to talk about scholarships, but I am going to stay on and talk about answer any questions or be happy to talk a little bit more about specifics in terms of scholarships. I'm going to go look through kind of the questions, see if anybody had any questions that didn't get answered. So if anyone has any questions that did not get answered, please go ahead and type them in now. I'm keeping an eye on those. Or if you came late and maybe missed some of the presentation, Kim has been recording this, so she will be sending that out when when everything has been finalized. I see some people typing, so I'm just going to give everybody